Hello, Gophers. I'm Dominic St-Pierre. You're listening to Go Podcast, by the way. Audio in the audio style, the good old audio. So
And I'm Morten. Yeah, we're back on audio.
yeah, I have not figured it out yet, and it adds way more steps than what I can take for now to have video because the podcast is automatically published to my YouTube channel, and I apparently cannot prevent that without losing the entry in the YouTube Music, podcast show that there is there. So
yeah.
I said, you know what, the good old audio for now will just work, and my internet connection is not great these days. So audio it is.
Nice. Yeah. We're gonna do some audio again. It's fine.
Oh well, I'm sure the internet will survive not seeing our face for a couple of weeks.
Let's see. A riot in the streets soon.
Oh yeah.
All right. What you been up to this week?
Well, it was a normal week, if I can say that. I've been doing some nice things with static backend and whatnot again. Small quality of life, I would say, in terms of continuing to polishing the server side function and the task. So what I tried to put in place last week, and I talked about that in the last episode, was an onboarding process. So make sure that when someone is creating an account on my platform, they are in a small onboarding sequence, a couple of emails. I think I have 5 emails at the moment, which try to guide them to get success and try to get them to hopefully convert their trial to a paid subscription. So this week, so with static backend, I have this CLI, which I can do most of what I need to do with the backend. So deploying function, looking at how functions executed and whatnot, and I also can easily query the data. So I have this backend DB list, DB query, DB get. So those are you can think of like CRUD operation, but from the command line, if you will. So you just pass the table name, and you can pass some other values there if you want to do some queries. So I was looking at the table, because I do have a table to drive all this onboarding, and everyone. It's not like there was a lot of people, but they were all stuck at. So I have this field which is called like step, and I have a field called days. So it's pretty simple. Each day there's a server side function that runs on static backend. It will just decrement everyone days columns from 1, and now it checks. Are we at 0? It means that we are, this particular user or this row in this context is ready to be sent an email. And the step is just what email are they going to receive. So at first, everyone starts with step 1 and have a days of 2, for example. So what it means is that it will send an email on the account creation, but the next one will be 2 days after their creation. So now I was looking at the data, and everyone was stuck at step 1, day 0. I was like, oh, that's not good. And first of all, you kind of trust yourself. You when I saw the data the first time, I said, yeah, it's probably good. I mean,
Yeah.
let's look at that tomorrow. And of course, I forgot to look at that tomorrow. So now, in a semi panic way. 2 days later, I execute the query, and I look, and everyone is at the same step. And now I'm starting to freak out. Am I sending the first email in the sequence in a loop now? And since I forgot to look yesterday, that means that it's already been like at least 3 days that people would have received the first email, which is, the best way to start a relationship with someone. Hopefully, there was a bug in static backend. So I was. It's kind of rare that you say, oh, it was nice. I've been saved by a bug. So the server side function basically has this fetch call. So static backend offer server side function. There's a runtime that I've built that allows me as a server function writer to do a lot of things. And one of these things is to be able to call other endpoint that's anywhere I can do HTTP call. So I kind of replicated the fetch the fetch command that we have on the client side, but it's it's all server side. It's the same, it's the same. You can pass the method and you can pass the HTTP headers, and it's all it's all replicating this thing, and this is there for a long time now. And the Go structure that received the data. So again, there's a method, there's the HTTP header, the URL, and whatnot. I did not have the JSON exporter, the JSON attribute in there. So in JavaScript, I was calling the fetch with a method with the m, lowercase m, and of course that was not going to be JSON decoded into the right structure. So I was basically doing all gets because by default the method is get and whatnot. So I was very lucky because I was expecting a post on my server. If that bug would not have been there, I would have sent the first email in a loop every day to all of these people. So it was kind of funny. I was like, wow, this is kind of rare that and this is an old bug. I mean, this fetch function I probably written that like in 2023 or maybe 2022 or whatever. So kind of funny that I was saved by an old bug in static backend. So
that's nice. I mean, once in a while, bugs are working for you. A good thing.
Yeah, it's pretty rare, but again, that was nice. So I was able to fix all the remaining pieces and whatnot, and I just checked before we started recording this, and now people there's some people that moved to step 2, so I was like, nice. Oh, that's good.
That's progress. That's cool, man.
Oh yeah, because that's probably something that is a little bit weak at the moment with static backend. That it's it's a little bit hard to get good overview of what exactly is going on. So I do have some history data. So when I do, let's say, backend function info and the name of my function, I can see every time that it ran, and there's a there's a log statement that I created in the runtime, because of course you cannot use console.log even though you're in JavaScript. This is not the browser, so you don't there's a lot of things that you don't have. So I do expose a log function from the Go runtime that is exposed to the Goja execution, if you will. So I have a ton of helper function in there, and one of them is log. So every time that you do a log, you will see that in your CLI when you do a backend function in info, for example. Yeah. But everything was good. So it was like, function started at this time, function ended at this time. So those two are added by default by static backend, and everything in between is all the logs. And in my function, I have logs, of course, only in the path that are wrong. But it was working because I was doing a get to an HTTP handler in Go that was expecting a post, but it was caught by since I'm rendering website for customer, there's the catch-all is trying to render a page and whatnot. So it was all good. It was returning a 200. So from the point of view of the function, there were no errors. So it was kind of tricky to catch, to be frank. When you don't really have, because I don't want to plague my function with a lot of, good path or success path logging. I don't like to do that myself. It's too verbose for me. Probably because I'm blind. I just want to see errors and worst case warning. But in production, I don't want to see success messages, if that makes any sense. But in that case, it could have helped, because at least I would have known which step was executed and whatnot. So it's pretty rough to. I'm curious. Are you handling that yourself? I'm talking about logging messages in production that might be considered noise sometimes and whatnot. I've seen that with Slug you can opt in to print debug or info level messages almost in runtime. I have to check that more, but there seems to be a lot I'm not knowing about Slug at the moment, which could be very nice. It's nice to see. It's nice to opt in or just enable something on the fly and just say, oh, you know what? For now, I need all the messages that are printed in that package, for example.
Yeah. Mainly right now, I just have a request logger that logs all the requests out for me, and then I of course just have like regular error logging. I log from info and above, so I don't have any debug logging. And also because I use spans and traces on all my logs, so there is some option to correlate like a request flow. So that's why I have info, even though I'm not really using it that much right now. It'll probably come once I start having sign-ups and those kind of things, so I can correlate like an entire request lifecycle, if that makes sense. But I'm not sure if that answers your question. I literally just logs from like info, and then have like a middleware that logs the request and the duration and stuff like that. But it gets a little bit chatty, a little bit noisy, but in general, I like to just have the requests come in. That's what I've always been used to starting from. So what is what are like all the requests coming in, and then take it from there.
But let's say when you're provisioning a server in your system, so I would imagine there's multiple steps that your operator is doing on this on the instance. So are you just logging that to standard output, for example, or and what level of logging are you doing in these kind of I would say process? Let's say out of the standard request response web process. So when you are doing something else, so let's say you are in a Go routine, for example, you are doing multiple things and whatnot. So what are you doing then?
I'm using a lot of I call them callbacks. It's not technically a callback. But for example, if you take the instance of provisioning and configuring a server, there's like they create the server in the provider, Hetzner, DigitalOcean, whatever, and then there's the whole configuration part, which is done with a bunch of bash scripts, and there it literally will take the output from that process, and then I store them in the database, and then I use Datastar to pull updates through the process until it gets done. So I could do logging, but it's like it's a process that runs in the background. So mainly I just rely on the event that comes in, and then error message from the background job that runs it. I don't really do a lot of I do top level logs for that stuff to figure out what goes wrong. But most of it is like events that I'm kind of like accumulating and then also showcasing those to the user so that there is some information into what is happening. Don't really do a lot of logs for that flow.
Do you have some kind of auto cleaning for this this database table, for example, when the data get cleansed from there?
Not for server provisioning, and I also have deployments that follows the same logic. It has like the operator will send back deployment updates throughout the entire process of what it's doing to the main application. I store that in a table. That I don't really clean up. That is all data I keep. But I do have mainly like for health checks and telemetry data. I do have like just a background job that cleans all of those data. So it's only have like a 24-hour retention span. Is that the word? Yeah. Mm-hmm. For that data, but because most of my logs right now and logging is purely done in memory on the server, right? I don't store it anywhere right now because I need we go back to the ClickHouse setup that I would eventually need to do. So right now it's just done on the server, and then I grab those logs through the operator and show them. So that's how I get logs out of each application and each server. And there it's basically whatever the user have set on their own log service. So right. That is, yeah. So
yeah. I'm trying to find some decent compromise. So for instance, the history of function execution, for example, that I do have at the moment. I'm starting to see that this will accumulate. I have one function that runs each 15 minutes, and now I need to find good ways, good defaults to auto clean this data. I was thinking of just probably I don't know, keeping the last X amount of execution, but on the other hand, yeah, I need to think about that because first of all I need to establish what needs to happen when a server side function execute and there's an error in there. At this moment, there's nothing going on, other than logging what happened. But it's the responsibility of me as someone that is using this platform to always look at my function, which might not be the easiest way to do that. It might be nice. So maybe I'm at this point where I will start to need some telemetry at some point, some dashboard to just have some kind of a red flag. Boom, there's something going on, or yeah. I don't even. Yeah, I'm not sure where I am at this point with all this, but what I'm discovering is that it's not it's not easy at the moment to be certain that everything is running without me having to look at all the function. I can do a backend function list, and I have a column in there that says what is the last execution, which is it's okay, it's good, it's a minimum, I would say. But I need after that I need to look at all the function and ensure that there's nothing that happened in error and whatnot. So yeah, I need to think about that a little bit.
But when you say clean the data, so you're storing the log statements in the database right now?
Yeah. Exactly. And every time that there's a log that is called, it adds an entry in a table for that function. Yeah. And it's decent, but obviously I cannot leave that there for all the time. I need a way. Maybe a 14 days could be something, but the problem is that when you do have recurring functions that run multiple times a day, and you need to you need to look at what happened at the moment. The backend function info returns, I won't be able to say that name, but chronologically, the execution yeah, exactly. It returns that.
Yeah.
And it's fine. But what if I want to look at what happened yesterday at 10 p.m., for example, or I'm missing some quality of life regarding precisely looking at what happened at this moment with that execution.
But you would also need more than just error and warn, right? To be able to I don't know how many levels your function goes through, but that's why one of the reasons why I keep info is that I can start like the entire trace or span from that instance and then follow it through the code base based on the ID it has. But that kind of requires me to have some starting point instead of just logging the error in somewhere and saying like this. Then I could of course just have the error chain from the Go program, but sometimes that is enough. But other times it's nice to see entry points with some identifiable data, and then go through the entire call path, and then through the span ID or the trace ID, and then being able to like map out what actually happened in this request lifecycle.
That's exactly what I have. This is the beauty of server-side function. So server-side function triggers either from an HTTP call or an event that happened in the system. So when it triggers, it start a log. It's basically, you can think of that just like a slice. Imagine a slice of string. It's more complicated than that, and each time there's a log statement, and the log statement in the runtime does not have info, warning, or error. It just log. So it just happened, a string directly to this, and when the function terminates, we just output that into the table directly. So you already have regrouped your function execution, because it's not really the same as an HTTP call that could start a lot of Go routine and do X and Y and Z and whatnot. So it's really isolated. So it's either it reacts to something that happened in the system. It could be your event, or it could be system event, like a database table that got a creation, an update, or a deletion, for example. It can react to that, or it can react to an HTTP call. But whatever it reacts to, you always have all your logs at the same place. So when you're looking at the execution historic data, you always have your starting time, all your logs, and the end time from the system. So that is already like that. But it's not easy to say I want to see this exact execution.
No,
because I don't really have. Well, it's just a timestamp. So, I could probably in the CLI have some kind of way to filter, or at least to pass. Let's say I would have a flag that says, start and end time, and now I could only return that. So that that could be an idea. But again, I need to think a little bit about that, because it's not easy at the moment to. And not only that, but maybe I would need to have something else than just a log statement. Something that, let's say a throw or something. I might need to add something to the runtime that would that would expose a function that let users write their function and say, if let's say like a panic, for example. Something really bad happened here, and now I want to be notified that this function should not have this behavior at the moment, and I want to be notified, maybe by email, maybe by I don't know yet, but something important needs to be communicated to the owner of the application, or the owner of the static backend instance, if you will, that, you know what, you created this function, and now, unfortunately, we ran into the panic statement that you wrote when you wrote your function. So that could at least give some point. It would not have helped me, because in my case, all was good. There was just no error and whatnot. But it will not always be like that. Sometimes bad thing can happen, and I need to know about that. Me as the owner of the application.
It's always so tricky to design these kind of things, because you want, like, there also is a balance between, like, how much can you. How much should you expose, and how much, like, can the caller actually do, and how much should the user do, and, like, all these kind of, like, things has to get into, like, a bigger cohesive unit as to how do we actually deal with this error. Because I'm dealing a lot with this with my create operator that runs on servers, right? Like, how is the balance between the create operator knowing how to fix things itself, and it just exposing errors to the main application, and then the main application should fix it, But there's always, like, this kind of, like, balance I'm trying to explore, like how self, what's it called, self-healing should the operator be, or should it, like, just be a stupid box that then returns an error, and then I have to build more functionality into the portal, right, so the user can fix it, or I can it's really interesting to design these things, but it gets really tricky, right?
Because you need to decide at which point, when are you distracting the user, or at least when something is important enough that you need to not rely on them looking at your dashboards and looking at your things, but receiving a real alert, wow, something really bad just happened. So in your case, I'm wondering if the operator is running some commands at some point. So let's say it's trying to update the OS. We were talking about that the other day. What happened if, I don't know, is it possible that it tries to apply some update, and now it's in a very bad shape, or the server needed to reboot, and now it's rebooted, but nothing restarts at the, there's so many things that can happen with the server when it's automated.
There is, and there's also, I'm still exploring other, like, backup strategies that I can do at quote unquote scale for this type of situation. But the main thing is for the operator that the thing I have in place right now is that should be contactable, if that's a good word for it. So whenever, like, if the server restarts, the service that runs the create operator, the operator will restart, and then it would ensure that it's exposed through Caddy. So it ensures that it has a route entry. That, of course, can all fail, right? And then the main system I have would then not be able to contact the server. Right, and then from that point, I install an emergency user on all servers that has SSH access, but can only restart the create operator. So there's only two users on servers that has access to SSH. That is the admin user that the customer gets. So I don't know what that detail. Whenever they get the server, I show them the details. They can copy it, and then I clear those details. So the only way for me to access the server is through the create operator, which has a very limited set of operations it can do, or the emergency user, which will only be used in cases where I can't communicate with the create operator. Of course, there is some polishing here, like what is the estimated time for when we trigger the situation, right? But it does have access, so there is multiple levels of things that I can do before the user would have to step in and do something, right?
Nice.
And that's also where like I'm really debating the self-healing properties and how to best do it. Because let's say that we have updates and this requires a reboot. If we apply the reboot, the create operator would get spun up and it would add an entry into the caddy routes so we can communicate with it. But all your other applications will not be started simply because I allow people to start and stop and restart. So there's no like restart always, for example. I could probably put like restart in unless stopped or something like that. But it still needs to get like the current state of what is on the server, and then add those routes, start those services, ensure that those instances of an environment are running. You know, that's like, because we have like these blue, green. I'm going to introduce like canary application and services. So there's a lot of state in a lack of a better word that needs to get applied to like a restarted server. And that also happens like during, let's say, like a deployment, because then if you just have a simple immediate deployment where we just cut traffic immediately, this is very simple. But when we start to add like blue-green, we need to switch traffic and we need to store the state of which is actually running in the database, but also verify that with the server. So who owns that whole process, which is still quite simple now. But when I start to add, let's say, for example, like the canary releases, there's like who owns the if something goes wrong process. I'm leading towards the operator owning if anything goes wrong, it should itself figure out how to get out of that by going backwards to an older version of whatever was running.
Right.
But it still needs to effectively communicate what is running on the server at all times. So we I have the option of disaster recovery of, okay, this server crashed, let's restart it. Here is a full picture of what was on the server at the last time that we had it right. So yeah, so a lot of debating on that part. Also, I have the initial plan was that some of this should be source available. That is still the plan, and I also want to ensure that once you provision your server, you're not locked into deploy crate. You can basically just get your data and do yourself, which would speak in favor of having the crate operator do more of that work. Instead of having, I could design the thing so that deploy crate, the application does everything right, and then you are kind of screwed unless you want to do like your entire platform. And I don't really want to do that because I don't think the value necessarily comes from just having the API right. Is the whole system that this value comes from, and it makes my life easier. It makes other people's life easier, right? So I'm leaning towards adding more self-healing properties into the create operator for managing the server. I think that's like the way to go. There should be a balance because it is a commercial venture, right? So there should also be an incentive to pay the $5 a month for managing the server, right? But it should. The core objective is don't everything should stay alive as much as possible, and that means deployment should feel as safe as possible, updates should feel as safe as possible, and literally just focus on shipping your application, right?
Yeah. Personally, I don't understand how companies are doing the canary deployment, because almost all the application I've been working in my career so far have some kind of data migration at some point when the new version is deployed. So the canary version to me just don't fit at all with this mentality of, you know what, now the new version, the canary version would update the database, but now you still have instances running the old version, and worse than that, you might need to roll back the canary version. So wow, this seems to be so complicated in terms of the database migration. side of things. This is I don't know. I don't know how they do that.
This is also a coming soon feature.
Yeah. Need to think about this.
Because it's also, like, I have also never really used canary deployments. I've always used some sense of zero downtime, blue green, those kind of deployments, right? Because I think that makes a lot of sense for most applications. And then like one thing you could use canary deployments for would be what you essentially would use feature flags for, right? You could test out a certain version of the front end or the wording or whatever using canary deployments or stuff like that. But mainly you would use it to see if your error rate spikes on those of those new features. But then you are right. Then you get into this whole like data setup where you would need something. Who was it that did it? Was it Neon? There was like a database company where they allowed you to treat your database like you would Git, so you could just branch off your data and have like a other branch of your data, but then again you still have to deal with the quote unquote merge conflicts at one point, right? So
merge conflict in the database.
Yeah.
That does not sound cool.
No, it does not sound fun. So you're right. I don't think there's a lot of value to be gained from canary deployments. It's something that exists in my mind because I want to introduce review apps into the application. I'm kind of like one of the guiding principles, like the applications. I'm mumbling right now. One of the guiding services for deploy quit is also how Heroku used to be, right? And they have review apps where you literally just could spin up and review apps environments for your pull request and check them out live and share them. So that is also something I want to implement, and those two things kind of work together in a way in how I designed the system. So it's kind of like I'm gonna get the review apps, which should just be like another application. But these dependencies that are different from the main environment, with like I will assume a Dockerized database to spin up with some seed data, and that might also fit into the canary stuff. I'm not really sure, but so I still have to solve for like what I'm conceptually calling a sidecar right now, because it might be a database, it might be a queue, it might be Redis, it might be a ton of other things that an environment would need or would want to have on the same server.
There's a lot of people that would say that that might not be a right test, because they usually want to test this in the real production. So that's a problem. That's why staging environments are less and less used, I think, these days. In my old time, we had this. We had, well, in fact, we had three environments. We had a dev, a staging, and a production environment. I'm sensing that this is not as popular as it was. And of course, what you're explaining seems to be a good way to test an application, but I'm not sure it's the same. It has the same values for a lot of people, because they want to have real production traffic to this new instance, and they want to see. I don't know exactly. The canary deployment is like. Is it like just for very, very, very big organization like Facebook and whatnot?
I would assume so, and also I'm not sure that is that widely used in applications, we're calling applications for lack of a better word, but I think it's more if you are doing something like a browser. Is it Chrome that has the canary release?
Yeah.
There's also this Japanese indie hacker bootstrapper guy who does like a node app called Inkdrop, I think it's called. I know he also does a lot of canary releases that you can kind of like, test out the latest. So it might not even be a thing
Yeah, that you know where I'm going with that,
Yeah,
Morten. Are you sure you need that at the moment?
Right now, I mean, I have not started building it, and I will not start building it for a long time. So it's good. It's good that you're keeping me in line here because it's a vision. It's a vision of a potential future. Yeah. Because I do think you're right. Like I'm not sure it would add a ton of value for most users of the service. Most users will just want zero downtime deployments, right? Like without interrupting traffic. And you're right. Maybe people only care more about real production traffic, but I like my hypothesis here is that the more people start to vibe code, the more they would rely on visual feedback. Like if you are vibe coding so many pull requests, like the insane amount of pull requests that people are talking about, why wouldn't you want to be able to share the link with people and test it out beforehand? Because then you do come up on another level. But it's true that maybe it's falling out of fashion, and I'm just trying to build, like, screaming into the void with these features that no one really wants. It might be true.
Yeah, things are changing for sure. Yeah, you will see. You will see. The best way to go is to hear the feedback and see. Your roadmap will probably shape up a little bit more once you start to have some requests and whatnot.
Yeah. Because now the biggest final things I have on my to-do list is notification systems that I'm trying to plan out how I want to do them. So like notification on deployment failure, notification on health check failure, maybe notifications around server updates or system failure, something like that. But that's kind of like the only thing. And then it's purely I need to solve the eyeball problem now. I need to get users onto the site and drive traffic, figure out how to do that. So I think most of the technical stuff is done to a degree that I'm comfortable with for like alpha. That like you can of course continue, but for like an alpha version, I'm very comfortable with where we are right now. And then before nailing down beta and V1, I would need some feedback on how other people would potentially use the product, right?
Yeah, sure. Is the notification going to include I don't know, like alerts? Let's say your CPU is very, very taxed for the last 10 minutes, or your RAM is near full and things like that. Are we talking about that as well?
Yeah, but I think that's the complete the complete picture of the system would be like that. Like there's notification settings where you can go in and you can probably add notification rules, stuff like that. For now, the first version I'm going to do is probably just going to be around health checks and deployments and if anything is down. Mm-hmm. Right? That's going to be the free notifications. And then like you just said, adding CPU uses high, memory uses high, iNotes or storage is starting to overflow, stuff like that.
And what happened if the health is not good? So their service is down for some reason. It's not starting. Are we talking about, I don't know, text messages, emails, and whatnot?
I would start with probably email, because I'm using AWS simple email service, which is ridiculously cheap. I don't think I paid for email in like 2 years. So that's probably where I would start. I mean, it could be cool to add in something like, I know Telegram's API is really easy to work with for doing stuff like this. But then again, the first step would be to just show that something is wrong, and then where do we go from there, right? Like how do we fix what is wrong? And I think once I get to how do I want to fix what is wrong, because there could be a lot of different things, but if the deployment is bad, I mean, hopefully 9. 8 out of 10 cases that is a user fault. But the system should get to a point where it's never the deployment process itself that is an issue. It's always the users that, I don't know, made an error in the logic or whatever it might be when deployed. So that is like, this went wrong. So you need to go in and fix this in your app, and then you can deploy, right? And then for memory and CPU, it could be cool just to give them here is a click this button and provision a new server, and then you're dealing with that issue or something like that. But given our talk last week, I've also been exploring the whole load balancer setup. And I'm not really sure what I want to do there, because if I add my own load balancer and maybe I buy into something like Cloudflare's global load balancer, then we have multiple jumps. That is also not really nice. But if I do my own load balancer that is truly can pinpoint geographical routing stuff, I need Anycast set up to my own IPs and stuff. It's going to be a nightmare. So maybe the initial version of this would be connect your Cloudflare, or you, the user, are responsible for having a load balancer in front of your servers, and maybe that can be a flag that you enable. I don't know. A lot of different options there.
I'm not sure what Anycast involves exactly. I know a little bit what it is. Does it route the traffic based on the IP of the users? Basically?
Yeah, I think so. I've not explored it very thoroughly yet. I've done a little bit of preliminary research on what could I do here, because the easiest option would definitely be to just add a load balancer behind, I don't know, Cloudflare's load balancer or something in AWS, right? But then you have the multiple jumps. Is that an issue? Maybe not. Would it make the life easier for people? Yes, probably.
Well, you don't need that now. That's a good. You can postpone a little bit, because people can still start and see, use the app and give you feedback and whatnot. If everyone is talking about load balancing after 1 week of using the tool, then that, well, okay, probably I should put a lot of efforts in there.
Yeah, that's true.
So until then, they cannot. I think you should be way better ensuring, like we was discussing, that the first 5 minutes with your tool is as simple as it can be for now.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And finding people, that is so hard.
Yeah, I there are so many things I would like to build and add and do, right? But I have to right now. It's I need to solve the eyeball problem.
Yeah.
Which likely means a ton of articles, comparison articles. It probably means a ton of videos and shorts and TikTok, YouTube shorts, all of those channels, right? Which is not really what you want to do as a developer.
Yeah, but we all want a product, and when it comes the time to do that, we are like, wow, this is so hard. But yeah, this is where it's at, man. It's
I
why...
just gotta add one little more thing. Yeah. So that's the
fight that we need to win at some point.
Yeah,
we all can build, especially now.
Yeah.
That was never the issue. So there's so many small tools out there that are built, and people seems to be closing them after 1 or 2 months because they apparently are not able to find anyone, and it's getting very, very hard to attract people.
Yeah, and also the whole Peter Levels methodology of 12 apps in 12 months, or 12 startups, as you called them.
Yeah.
Which I think now, I think it worked back then because it was not a common practice to do. But now with all this, with AI being built so fast, if you build 12 things in 12 months, I think it's going to send off a poor signal as to people actually want to using your product. It's probably better to have a few projects going for a long time that you continuously talk about and show up with, and then you could kill at one point if they don't work right.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's rough. Yeah, I posted on Reddit about static backend. It got downvoted a little bit. It should be good for people that are doing web application in Node and JavaScript and whatnot. And the majority of the reply that I'm getting is, it looks nice, but I'm not using Go. So I said, well, you don't need to use Go at all. It's just built. ESBuild was built with Go, and everyone is using that in the JavaScript ecosystem. So I never seems to have been able to pass this aversion from non-Go people. It's just a server and things like that. But maybe they find that difficult to deploy. Which is crazy because Go binary is the simplest thing ever, but yeah. I don't know, man.
No, that's also sounds like a very Reddit type of reply.
Oh yeah, totally. But yeah, at some point, you cannot not post your things when you can, you should. But and especially static backend, it it's there since 2020. It was closed source in before that. I open sourced it in 2020 basically. Yeah. So yeah, at first I was truly believing that I was going to be able to sustain myself, which I was completely wrong.
I'm warming because my web framework and Doodle is. I know I'm biased here, but it's becoming very productive. I really love working with it, which should not be a surprise when I built it for myself, right? But it's starting to reach a point of either I'm not sure I'm going to do another beta release, I'm going to do a release candidate, I will have to see. But then I also have to do a Reddit post again. I don't think I'm going to post it in Go, like in our Golang. I think I'm just going to post it in like Rails and Laravel and programming in general, and they seem to welcome it with a different mindset than what I got in the Golang community.
Web framework,
especially now that I use Bun as the quote unquote ORM, I might get even more hate. Let's see.
It seems you took all the the thing that the Gophers are saying, and you said, you know what, I will build a framework with all of those things.
Yeah, we also like, I think it was interesting. The interesting thing about this project, like what could we, like I don't want to write Rails, I don't want to write Laravel, I don't want to write Django, but I want to build a web application where I don't have to type out so many stuff, so many things all the time, which like one of the key strengths about Go is that it's verbose because it's very easy to read, but it's also it can be cumbersome to write compared to other languages. So it's also like, what happens if we just do this? And then I started to do some of these things. I was like, okay, this is actually fine. This is not that bad. I know there's a reason why we have these rules and stuff, right? But for example, with the Bun thing, it's basically just a builder that mimics very close to how SQL looks like, and it's become so fast for me to write, add new models, add logic to it. It's like so quick to write, and it's with very minimal penalty. So of course you get a penalty, right? But it's so easy because it's not like GORM. It's not the same thing as GORM. Yeah. So they model it more as they call it zero abstraction. Of course, it's not zero abstraction totally, but so like that was like, okay, it's actually fine. This is completely okay to do. And like I did a stream last week where I was like, the title was committing crimes in Golang or something like that. I was just exploring
Nice.
everything that I know I shouldn't do, according to a Golang developer, right?
Yeah. What are you
so,
doing for validation? When
I use, what's the name? There's this really famous validation library in Go, Validator, I think it's called.
okay, yeah.
Because I'm starting to use that's. I think that's another one of the things. I'm starting to use reflection a lot more and rely a lot more on struct tags for certain things. So, for example, like again, Bond. There's a lot of the logic that goes into the struct tags or quote unquote logic. A lot of I have a centralized routing package where I also rely on struct tags to define like the parameters, which makes it very nice to have like single place where all your routes are defined, and you can also reuse them to pull out data or params from the URLs, right? So the same thing with my validation. It's literally just in the payload struct that gets passed into the model layer. There's validation logic on that through validator, and then it will just return the validation error and a custom error type said validation failed, so I can check for that, and then I can always do whatever I need to do with it. And I did actually explore because Bun has hooks where you can like hook into the before and after of these things, trying to just add policies and a validation just to see how it felt like, and there the Go community's wisdom was completely spot on. That was crap. That did not work well. That was not a good thing. So, yeah, now it's just everything here goes directly into to the call of the model for validation and access. Yeah. What about you? What do you use?
To build a web application?
No, to do
validation. Well, I do function. I do function on the struct. Yeah. I do have a validate, function directly. So it parses the either if it's JSON or the form URL encoded body. It's doing that, and I do good old if. Pretty boring, pretty dirty, but very reusable.
Yeah, I also been exploring that a little bit because I ended up sometimes having two places for validation because if you want like I think it's nice when you do like input data that you get like the feedback that you would expect from a modern like let's say SPA like a React application where like you get an error message, you color the outline based on the border, whatever you do, like you provide feedback immediately to the user. And that is very easy to do with data styles, very easy to do with HTMX, but you need different kinds of logic as to how you apply the validation rules, because let's say you have 3 fields and you just type into like the email field. If you just use regular validation tags, all of those fields will return an error if they have like a minimum length requirement, which doesn't make sense because you haven't started typing into them, right? So you need to add something with like ignore what is it, omit empty or something, right? So that's also why I started to explore doing functions as well, like having a function on the struct that validates that the data is correct, and then I can just use struct tags on the again payload objects, model struct, whatever that comes into the controller.
I like to return the struct itself myself. So basically it's a function on the struct, and it also returns a struct, and it returns an error directly.
Nice.
Yeah, it's pretty Go idiomatic. Again, it's verbose, but it's pretty testable as well, and it just it's the way I did that because I'm an old time gopher. So at the beginning when I started, there were just no validation things, and coming from C#, reflection was always like you should probably never do reflection kind of mentality in .NET unless you really need that, because you're losing a lot of CPU cycle and whatnot. So yeah, I kind of embraced the verbosity of Go at some point, and it does not bother me to write code as much as it once did, because again, I switch really. I went and Go with a 15 years of C#, and at the end C# was pretty. It was already pretty succinct and very concise and short. You could express yourself with C# very without looking too crazy. There's some one-liners sometimes that after 3-4 months you look at that and then you said, what is going on in here?
Yeah.
But yeah, when I started Go, I embraced the fact that, okay, you know what, in this land, in this world, we are writing a lot of line of code, and that also make things just simple, and I don't know, I know what's going on.
Yeah, but it's also because whenever I do client work, whenever I work with companies where for them I never do web applications in Go in the same way that I'm doing my own web applications. It's always like JSON APIs, right? That I create. And in that case, yes, I am all down for writing it out, because it's typically in an environment where the domain logic is sort of established already. It's like the customer, the processes. You want this to be cumbersome is not the right word, but I think you want the process to be a little bit resistant to finish, because it forces you to think more about what goes into this change or this flow, right? So I still like it for different kinds of things where it's like when the stakes are higher. I like that it's verbose and you have to be a little bit more. You can't just magically write one line and have technically written 20 lines as you can with other dynamic languages. Yeah. So again, different tools for different kinds of jobs.
It depends what you're building. I typically like to take that I'm building application for a very, very long time, and I don't mind putting the effort first, because I have maintained 15, 20 years old software myself, so I know what it means to. Sometimes it pays down the line to just embrace the simplicity, and you will win that later in the main maintenance of the software.
Yeah.
But again, validation is something I hate to write. The way I do that, I will be frank. I would love, or I would prefer to have struct tags. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I don't know, for some reason I'm just happy they are there at some point, because I can always rely on calling a function whenever I am, not only when I'm decoding the data. So every time that I just need to ask myself, is this thing valid? I can just call the valid function.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah, I'm also not entirely sold on either direction. I also explored something called SOG, ZOG, that is Golang, Golang version of JavaScript validation stuff.
Yeah, I received the other on Go Podcast. Yeah, a long time ago. Yeah. Also maybe we should bring him back, and maybe he would convince us to jump into that. It seems to be good.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I had to change how the way I wrote it compared to just doing the struct text. But it was nice with I like the builder pattern for certain kind of things, and it's nice that you add these different kinds of levels. And you have like let's say quote unquote. No, it's not quote unquote, because it is literally a schema for how to validate your data, right? So
we should bring him back, man. Because validation is such a I don't know. It seems that no matter how you are doing it's not fun in Go. That is a fact.
Yeah, that's true. So yeah, that would be nice because I'm still holding on with the proper V1 release until I'm like completely convinced about like this is one of the last elements that I'm a little bit. I don't really know what I like long term for this sort of like web apps. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool.
Nice.
Morgan. Yeah, I think that's a wrap.
Yeah, sounds like it. All right, man.
All right. Have a good week.
You too. See you later.
Bye.